Welcome everyone. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about pattern design. If you're new to my channel, I am the agent for Surefit-Designs in South Africa. Now, Surefit-Designs is a pattern fitting system that gets used all over the world by garment sewers and designers as well. If you only sew for yourself or if you want to sew for customers, it's just an easy method that you can use to draft your own basic pattern and then design anything that you want. We have so much information for you online. We have our SFD Learning Center. We have a YouTube channel that Linda loads. She's loaded, I think, over 200 videos for you already, all about Surefit-Designs, measuring, designing, fitting, everything there. And we also have monthly live chats with Linda in America as well. Now, one thing that I really wanted to chat to you about, and this is a question that I get over and over again, is if I sew with knits, how do I remove the bust dot? In our dress kit, and this is now all I'm going to be talking about the dress kit specifically, we have waist dots and we have our bust dot. Now, the best fit that we will always get is if we have dots that helps us with the shaping. If you are someone that's got a B cup size or a D cup size, you will design your sloper according to your cup size. If you usually use commercial patterns, there's a lot of fitting that you have to go through. You've got to do full bust adjustments because all those patterns that you buy will have a B dot for you on the bust area. And most of the time, if we are a bigger cup size, the dot is also not angled at the right, to our apex that we are needing the dot to go to. So I'm just going to quickly, before I actually go into removing my dots, I just wanted to give you information on dots. Now, dots is really where we want to shape the garment, where we need to maybe add a little bit of volume, and then at another point we've actually got to almost suppress that volume that we created. And the one now that I'm going to talk to you about is our bust dot. In our Surefit-Designs, you already in the dress kit, and remember the dress kit is for your bodice, for all your tops, for dresses, for jackets, and for your skirts. So it is quite I would say a big master pattern kit. You've got your templates in there as well, and one of the templates that we do have is our adjust the bust template. And as you can see, it goes bigger because the bigger the bust, the more volume I'm actually needing over the bust area, and the more I have to take out on the side seam where I don't need the volume. So we need to go bigger as our cup size is bigger. So I'm just going to show you something from the side. If I measure, and if you're measuring also for your Surefit-Designs, you will measure from the center of the shoulder, and you will go over the bust and you will go to the waist area. Now, can you see as I'm going with mine over there? Now, if I've had a bigger bust, my cup size was bigger, obviously I'm just trying to get it in. I am going to just hold it like that. I need more volume going over the bust area, and when I create that extra volume, I don't need this length that's going over the bust to my waist in the side seam. So we suppress that dot and we take it out by sewing our dot so that I've got the correct side seam length that I'm going to work with. So that is in the case now with our Surefit-Designs. We do have the bust dot there. It gives you the best fit ever. We can do dot manipulations by moving the dots around to do different styles. I can move that dot really into my waist dot if I'm going to create a flare. I can move it into my shoulder. I can move it into the armhole. It can go into the neckline, wherever I want to move it, depending on the style that I want. And because you are designing for yourself, it's giving you all these options, everything you see on Pinterest. I'm a lover of Pinterest. I will go into Pinterest, I'll go and look at different styles and garments, and I will then take that image and I will design it for myself. You can also do that. The Surefit-Design system is an easy system to help you draft your basic sloper now. But I do want to also tell you, you do have to do a fitting first. You have to make your sloper and change it according to your body. Remember, we're working with our bodies. It's basically, we've got, all the, all our contours. So we've got to take a flat pattern piece, and we've got to take this flat pattern and we've got to make it fit our body. Now, some of us will have a round back, some of us will have sloped shoulders. Whatever the case is, you then change it to fit your body. After you've done all the changes, that becomes your blueprint, and that is the one that when we design, every time we copy that one that we've perfected, and we can go ahead and design. Now I'm going to talk to you more about knits now. We do have a lot of information on designing on the wovens, but one question that keeps popping up is, how do I remove the bust dart now? Remember, if I'm working with a stretch fabric, and let's say also quite a thin stretch fabric, I really don't want to go sew darts in there. If you look at your t-shirt, most of your t-shirts won't, or your knit tops won't have a dart. So we have to move that dart somewhere in our pattern to remove it. But again, you are still going to get a good fit because that dart was moved. If we start with this basic block where there's no dart and we've got a bigger bust, we are going to have some drag lines, especially going over, you know, like from our hip area over to the bust line. So we've got to be aware that we can get certain fit issues on our knits. So we are going to minimize it by using our dress kit and taking that dart out. But if you are a big cup size, we will always somehow have a little bit of a line there. So when I'm going to do the pattern work, I will tell you what I sometimes do in this area as well. So I'm going to give you all the tips now that I do. Again, remember, there is really so much information out there for you on designing, and we tend to all find what works for us. There's certain rules that we don't break. Like if we're working with dart manipulation and I take you through the pattern work, you will see certain rules we cannot break. Other things, there's not really a standard, so it leaves a little bit of space for us to play with it, and that's what we are going to do, because if we work with knits, there is no standard really out there in the industry. I've bought myself a book on pattern design for knits, and everything that I've looked, there is no standard. So I've worked through it now for quite a while, and I've tried to perfect it to work for myself. And remember, I'm making clothes for myself, I don't sew for other people, so you're also going to follow along on the steps, and I need you then to go tweak it so that you get your fit correct according to your body and your body measurements that you have. So this is going to really be part one now for you, where we're going to remove the dart. I'm going to talk you through that. In part two, I am going to talk to you about sizing down. Now, if you look in your instruction book, if you do have the dress kit and you look in your instruction book and you go and look on page 6, you will see there is something, and I'm showing it to you here. Let's see if you can see it. Okay, so there's a whole section there. It says sewing with knits or stretchy knit fabrics. I want you to go and read that. Glenda has also done a YouTube video where she talks to you about sewing with knits. But as I said, all of us tend to get our own, I don't know, we all get our own way of working with something. And for my body, I figured out what works for my body, and I'm sharing that with you. So I'm doing mine different to what Glenda does hers. But you can also go to the Learning Center and you can go and download her leaflets on how she does her changes. And then work with it, work with her way, work with my way. See what fits you, what works for you. As I said, there is really no standard for us when we start working with knits. In the dress kit as well, I'm just going to mention it, but that will be of part 2, is the sizing down. And Glenda also gives you instructions on page 9 how to size down by going 1 or 2 dots, maybe a little bit more down. When I do my sizing down, I prefer, I've got a grading system that I use that I actually, it's almost condensed when I work through my design book. So I'm going to share that with you in part 2. But for now, I'm going to take you through all the pattern work to remove your bust dart. Let's look at our back pattern piece now. Our back pattern piece, we only have the waist dart that we need to remove. Or as I said, again, we're designing for ourselves. You might decide that you are going to leave the dart in. But when we work with wovens, we always need our darts for shaping. So we need to shape the waist, we need to shape around the bust area. So we always need that. But when we get to knits, now knits don't tend to sew well when we want to sew darts in them because of the stretch of the knit. There we would rather go and work with a pattern that we've reduced in size. In our next lesson that we are going to do, I'm going to talk to you about negative ease. For this one now, we just want to remove everything that we need to remove, but we want to size down eventually if we are working with our knits. Now, the first thing that I want to do, on this one, I want to remove the waist dart. Again, you can leave the waist dart as it is. You can remove the full dart or half a dart. With our dress kit, we've got a 2.5 centimeter, which is 1 inch ease allowance in our waist area. So I can now remove a little bit of it, and when I sew with my knits, obviously the smaller I go, the more negative ease I'll be working with, and the tighter it can go. But the knit fabrics tend to stretch with our body to give us that nice fitted look, so we don't have that baggy look. Now the first thing we want to do is decide, are you going to remove this? Sometimes I will remove it, sometimes I won't, but I'm going to take you through the steps if you want to remove it. Now I've got my waist dart is 3.8 centimeters, so that is going to give me now I've got to think, guys, 3.8, so it's 1.5 plus 4, it's 1.9 centimeters that I'm going to remove. I just want to remove half of my dart. I'll rather size down to remove the rest. So I'm going to go about 1.9, and I make a mark for myself. I'm going to take this off on my side seam. Then what you're going to do, you can just use your ruler and you can shape it back to the underarm point. And with, oops, my pen is not working. Let's go to our blue. Let's see if this one will work for us. I actually want to do it in a black, but if I'm going up to that area over there, I'm going back to my underarm point, and then the next one I want to do is shape it back into my side seam as well. So I can go curve it. I'm just going to see which way I'll be working. And again, guys, this is, sorry, I'm just fiddling around here with my, there we go. So you want to get a nice smooth line going from the waist going down that way. You'll see it almost forms a bit of an angular line for us, but with knits that is not a problem because the fabric gives and it stretches. If you want to, you can always just take your curve, your designing stylus, if you want to, and I'm just going to do it in a blue, you can always just go smooth this curve for yourself so that you've got a nice continuous line going down to that area. So what I've done here now, I actually got rid of my waist dart, of the waist shaping. So that is removed. The next thing that I do want to do now, if we sew with knits, even if it's just stretching horizontally, you know, around the body, we sometimes do have a little bit of a give vertically. And when we sew with knits, if we don't do this change now, we will find that here at the waist shaping that we might have a bit of excess fabric, so that it almost looks like I've got fabric pooling in the waist area. At the back you'll almost think you've got a bit of a sway back. So we've just got to remove about 2.5 centimeters when we take our basic block, which is for the wovens, into our knit block. Now how to remove it, it's 2.5 centimeters. So I want to remove half of it on the top part, my bodice part. I want to remove half of it on the skirt section of my bodice. Now the best way to do it that I find is to actually remove it around this area. If I usually just take a top and I pull it up a little bit at the neck or the shoulder, you'll see it just pulls all the excess fabric up there. Now what I want you to do to remove that, and like I said, it is 2.5 centimeters, or if you are working in inches, it will be 1 inch in the full pattern that we want to remove. So I'm going to take half of it. So here it's going to be about 1.3. I'm going to just work on about 1.3. I'm going to take it down a little bit. I'm removing a bit of length. I am going to go down about 1.3 over there. And on the shoulder point, we don't want to go too much. I'm only going to go about 6 mil. And I'm going to redraw these lines for myself. So I can go and, sorry, let me just get my lines right here. I'm going to just remove a little bit over there. And again, always go back to what your shoulder length was. Mine is 11, so I'm just checking myself. So I can see if I go 11, I'm over there. So I'll take my ruler. Sorry, I've got everything lying here. So I will just go and I will redraw the curve of my neckline. All right, so I've now removed half of my measurement that I need to remove at the neck section and on the shoulders. The next one we want to also remove, work more or less on your high hip area. and I'm going to take my other 1/2 inch or 1.25 or 1.3 centimeters on the high hip area. So I might just go over, let's draw it there. I'm just going to do it there, and again it is going to be my about 1.3. I'm just going to now eye it here on my board. It looks almost correct if I'm doing that. Let's just go, there we go. So I want to go and remove a little bit of my length there. This is now taken that length out, like I said, for the knits. That gives a little bit so we don't have excess length on our pattern. When we are working with vertical a vertical stretch as well, I will need to maybe look at taking out a little more. But now all you have to do with this, I'm just going to cut this section away, and I'm going to go on that section just to show you. And now I've turned my woven block into, sorry guys, I'm just turning this. I've taken my woven block and I've now created a knit block for myself. There we go. All right. And the next thing that I want to do, I just want to remove that length that I have here. At first I didn't, when I started playing with this method, I didn't reduce in length unless I had a vertical stretch. But the more and more I'm sewing with knits, the more I'm realizing that I actually do need to take out a bit of length. I always get that little bit of a pooling at the back and at the front where it just, the length looks too long. So by doing this, we are now going to just perfect this pattern so that we don't have all that excess fabric. Remember, you are working with your sloper that you've already fitted, and if you consider that you've, I just want to get my lines there, sorry, if you consider that you've already done a sway back adjustment if you needed one, so we don't want to go and do a sway back again. I'm just going to just draw it there a little bit for myself. There we go. So and if I do end up taking off a little bit there, it is really not an issue because my fabric's got stretch. But I've already done a sway back on my woven pattern, so I don't want to go do another sway back again. That length I have is purely because the fabric gives. When we're working with knits, even though I've only got my horizontal stretch, I do tend to, if you pull that fabric, you'll see it does give a little bit for us in the lengthwise. And because we're not using a dart to shape the waist, we have to just do this little bit of work to make sure we are going to get a perfect fit of our knits. Now the next thing, this is all done now for our back. Our next one now we're going to look at is changing the front and removing the bust dart in the front. We are now going to look at how I'm going to remove the bust dart. We are also going to do the same as on the back. We are also going to take some length out of our pattern, which we're going to remove from the neck and the shoulder, and then on the high hip area where we removed, and we're doing exactly the same as there. But my first step is going to be to actually remove this dart that I have in the bust area. Now if you have a bigger dart, if you're a B cup, you can just follow along and you can move everything basically into your waist, or this, into this waist dart where we're going to move it. Or if you are a bigger cup size, you've now got to start looking at what is that measurement, what is the volume of your dart, and you might have to take it and divide it in 2 or 3. You will have to see. That depends exactly, or let's say it depends on your bust dart size that you have. Mine, I'm only going to divide in 2. So I will remove some at the bottom, and I'm going to remove some that I'm going to remove from my shoulder line over there, because I'm going to move part of my dart into the shoulder. Now again, I'm telling you, there is no standard. We all tend to play and see what works for us. Glenda has got a totally different way of doing it, so please go download hers as well. I really want you to work with the different ways of doing it and find what's going to work for you. It's like baking a cake. Some of us will just do the recipe as it is. Some of us will like to add or change the recipe a little bit. So this is what pattern design is all about. You're going to work and change it so that it fits your body at the end of the day. So one of the rules that I said that we do have in pattern design is when we work with darts, we talk about a dressmaker's dart and we talk about the designer's dart. Now my dart that I'm going to sew out that is my dressmaker's dot. It will never, the tip of that dot will never go into the apex or your bust point. It will always be pulled back between 2.5 to about 3.8 centimeters. It's about 1 to 1.5 inches. We don't ever want to sew this to curve around the bust and go to the front to the apex. So that is my dressmaker's dot. But as soon as I start designing now, and I'm going to do a little bit of dot manipulation, I need to change this into what we call a dressmaker's dot. So it's, sorry, not dressmaker's, designer's dot. So the way to do that, a designer's dot will always be up to the bust area, to your apex, and this dot, even if we're playing with waist dot or our bust dot, will be connected to our bust dot. This becomes almost like our pivot point, and this is where I will swivel this dot around, and you're going to see when I'm going to do my dot manipulation now. So let's go and create our designer's dot, and we take the designer's dot out. Let's just take my black pen. We keep it exactly where that dot is on the side seam, or that dot leg starts on the side seam, and we draw it into our bust point. All right, so let's do that. That will always be your first step in dot manipulation, because I want to close this dot here. But remember, we are working with a flat pattern, so as soon as I work with a flat pattern, if I move it anywhere else, whatever I do in this pattern, it's got to stay flat. So when I close somewhere, that means I've got to open up somewhere else. It's almost like a minus and a plus. At the end of the day, if I minus somewhere, I have to plus somewhere else. So we keep the balance, or our calculations will always balance out. So if I take out, let's say, usually I'm just taking something now like 5 centimeters, then I know, okay, it will be opening up maybe with 5 centimeters somewhere else if I'm working with small measurements. But there is, sometimes it's going to look like you're opening more, and I'm going to show you now when I do go to the shoulder why it looks like it, but it's really not opening up as much. So I'm going to now just put a piece of my sellotape on the back. I don't want my pattern to tear when I'm cutting through it. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm just turning it around so I can just get to the cutting now. So I know I'm going to close it on this section. I'm going to move half of my dot. I'm going to move to the bottom, and I'm also going to move half of my dot into my shoulder. If you wanted to, if you really got a big cup size, you can even leave a little bit on the section. We're not going to sew it then as a dot, but you can ease it into the back seam so that you also just get a little bit of that length away on the side seam. Again, please play with this. You've got to see what is going to work on your fabric and for your body. But for mine, I can literally just take half there and half over there. So I'm going to draw my line that I need to put that dot in to you. So I'm going to take it halfway into my shoulder. So I'm going to remove some of the volume. Part of my dot will be moved into the shoulder, and the other part I'm going to move it to the waist dot area. So I'm just going to draw a line for you on this section as well, so that you can see that. So let's start cutting it, and we are going to first remove this dot, and then I'm going to cut through these lines so that I can then close this, and I will open it up into these areas. So let's go and take this out, and the dogs next door are busy barking. I don't know why they're barking. Okay, so I've just removed that. And now I am going to cut through on the areas where I want to transfer my dart to. So I am going to cut through on this section over here, and let's just go to there. And I am going to, sorry, I'm just swiveling it around so that it's easier for me to cut a little bit. I just want to cut up from this section, and I'm just going to cut up again to my bust point as well. Okay, so one thing that I didn't do now, I just want to go one step back. I just wanted to show you again. So if I am going to close this dart over there, I said I'm going to work with it and move half there, half there. It's going to be easy for me to almost guess the half that I have over there, or that I'm moving. But you need to go and measure. Mine is 5 centimeters. So I'm going to transfer about 2.5 and 2.5 over there. So when I'm closing this, let's just cut through a little bit more. It didn't cut through for me. Can you see I am closing my dot? Look at that. So I have now moved some of my dot into the shoulder. I've moved some of my dot into the bottom, into the waist dot as well. And I can play with this now. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close up this perfectly first. So let's just close this up. Sorry, it's just pulling a little bit there. I'm just going to close up that one so that I can move this around and play with it. So I can decide I want to maybe put a little bit less there. It is really now up to you. And can you see as I'm swiveling it there, I would have only put it into the shoulder, which gives me quite a lot of volume to remove. That would have been too difficult to work with. The bigger the bust, the more I add there, the more my pattern will be curving up at the bottom when I am going to draft my pattern. Remember, let me take one step back. I just want to go one step back. I want to show you a sample here. When we are working with our patterns, if you are looking at my pattern piece, this is just a miniature that I have drawn. And here I've gone and I've worked this pattern on there. So you can see my waist dot and my bust dot. Every time I take out this dot, the volume, let's just go closer. Can you see that dot that I've sewn? If I take that out, automatically I'm removing length on the side. I am actually reducing that length so that it's going to fit into my back pattern seam line that I have. And if we look at it, and I'm going to lift it on this pattern piece here, just want to show you something. Sorry, it's just such a soft fabric. But if I keep that straight, can you see when we close this up, automatically it's curving slightly to the side. Can you see that? So we've got the length we needed across the bust, which made my top longer in the center. And because we are taking out the dot on the side, and I'm lifting it, if I lift it a bit more, look at it, the more I lift, the more I'm going to start angling up. So I'm putting that on the straight line. So we are angling up. So what I'm doing in effect, I'm taking some of this dot, I'm going to put it into the waist dot, so that when I manipulate further on the pattern, it will give me that slight curve, and the rest will be in the shoulder. So I just wanted to show you basically my method behind it, because you might think, but now the side seam is curving, or it's curving up a little bit there. That is perfectly fine, because that's what happens when you actually sew your woven and you take out the volume on the side. So I'm going to play with mine and manipulate a little bit, and I think I'm going to do about like that. For me, that is going to work. And all you're going to do now, we are going to put a piece of paper in there, and I'm also going to, I think this one is a little short. Let me just grab another piece of paper. I'm just going to cut a little strip of paper here for myself. Right. So I'm just moving my tracing vellum up. But before I move it and everything shifts, I'm just going to put this down. I'm not going back and, like when we work with wovens, redraw my dots. I don't want dots. I'm working with knits. So remember, we're not going to go back to a dressmaker's dot. I'll show you now what we are going to do. Let's just put all this together. There we go. All right, so my pattern now looks like this. I've moved some of the volume there, some of the volume there. If you are someone that like a looser top, more of a swing top, you can leave the volume in there, but I want a fitted t-shirt. I don't want any volume, so I've got to go back now and I've got to close up this dot that I've just created. And in order to do that, I'm going to take my marker. Let's just get one that's working. And I'm going to, from there and from the bottom leg there, I am going to, I hope you guys can really see, we're taking it from an angle. So I'm just going to draw from there to there, and I'm going to draw it into about 1 centimeter away from my underarm point, because I just need another swivel point to close again. So I'm just going to go redraw that. And I am going to just draw a line here. I want to remove this so that my hemline, when I cut it and close it, I'm just going to turn it here. Can you see that? So this opening I want to close again. I want to bring it back so that I don't have the extra width. I don't want a swing top. I don't want a wide hem. I want a fitted knit top that I'm going to be sewing for myself. So in order to do this, I am just going to quickly cut this out. Just cutting this as well off there. So I'm going to take this out again. If you follow the steps, go draw yourself a little diagram of what I'm doing. It is really not as difficult. If you are new to this method, maybe you will find that it feels a little confusing, but if you've played and done dot manipulation, you will really understand how this is working. So there we go. Just going to go there. I just need to put, I didn't put sellotape there. My paper is going to move and pull apart. Just going to do that as well. Sorry, I just don't want to tear it when I'm moving it around. So there we go. Just going to cut away a little bit there just so I can swivel this. And now the next thing that we are going to do, and I'm turning it so you can see, is I'm going to close up. This whole section comes out. Oops, I didn't cut through the sellotape over there. This is all dot manipulation. If you go look up on dot manipulation, there is so much we can do by just playing with our dots. So I am going to close this up. And make sure everything, I'm just going to actually pull it, my sellotape is not correct there. I'm just closing everything up again so everything lines up. I don't want to create extra width on the waist or on the hem area. So that's what I've done. I'm just taking it all out again over here. There we go. Now if I'm going to just do the last little bit to show you, is we've got to recurve our hemline. Guys, I'm really going to tell you, make notes of this. I will draw a little picture and we'll put it in the file section for you with all the lines that I've drawn, just so that you can play with it and see what I've done. Now, one thing that I do want to stress, I'm going to turn it this way so you can see what I'm doing. I have to redraw this curved line. And when I'm going to redraw it now, don't curve too quickly. If you are curving here already and trying to go in there, when you make your top, it's almost going to make like a little roundness right in the front, and we don't want that roundness there. It's going to be so accentuated. Remember when I worked with my bust dot was only from there really, that, and you can go down from your bust point where your dot was and just go and make a little mark for yourself. So I want to go as straight as far as possible, and then only from more or less there will I start curving in. When we started playing with this method in the beginning and I looked at it and we made a sample, we started curving from here and we had so much, I don't know, roundness at the bottom that it actually didn't look so nice. So I'm going to play with my ruler now, and we want to go back exactly into that area, and I can move it so that I stay as straight and let's say that curve as long as possible on a straight line. So I might just go and just create a slightly longer straight line for myself, just a little bit, so I know when I go into that. And then from about there, let's play and move your designing stylus. You want to move it around till you get a nice smooth line over there. So I'm going to maybe from there start picking it up and go into there. Just go give yourself a nice curve there as well, but try and keep this section straight as long as possible. You can work with your pencil, erase it, go back, play with it and see what your shape is, but be aware, don't have this straight line too short. It is really going to give you a very rounded top in the front, which we don't want. Now with this method, now we have removed the bust dot volume at the bottom, and the next one that I do want to do is we've got to now look at what's happened on the shoulder. Because we've opened it up, I have to take this measurement. I want to remove it. I don't want to sew any darts in my knits, so I'm just going to measure what that width is, and it is, let's just see, it's about, if I go from there to there, just about 2.6. So I'm going to go and I'm just going to mark a little bit in there so that I can go back to my 11 centimeters shoulder line that I do have. And you want to then, when you draw it, just go and don't drop it at all, but we are removing, remember, all of this added width across. So when I'm recurving my armhole, I'm literally just going into that section and I'm going to, let's just get it, I'm just going to recurve my armhole. There we go. And I can cut that away now. So let's go and do that. This is all, guys, dart manipulation. So, oops, I'm going on the wrong line. We want to remove this. Then just go perfect your pattern as well. Oh, I just went and tore my pattern there. Just go perfect your pattern and make sure that from your shoulder point to the neckline, we have a straight line again. So I'm just going to redraw. I'm truing my pattern. I'm just going to redraw this. All right, there we go. I'm going to cut it away so that I'm not confusing you with all the lines. So I'm still busy getting rid of darts. Remember, sewing with knits, we are getting rid of our darts. So I'm just going to cut this away. There's my new shoulder line. So our next step now that we want to do, my dart I've already measured before I started with it, was also 3.8 centimeters, which means on my side seam I am going to remove 1.9. I took half of my dart width back, width at the back, and I'm going to take half of my dart there. If you leave your dart, this center line will just slightly curve into the waistline, because when we also sew with a woven, we close it, we're already creating that slight curve to give us a waist shaping. My waist is sitting there, so I am going to go and take off my 1.9. So I'm making my little mark there, and now I can go and redraw my line into my underarm point. And I can go again, and I'm just going to reshape it. I'm just using this edge like that. I'm just going to reshape it in there. Obviously, you will want to make sure that your front and your back will be equal, the same shape that I have over there. So in effect, what I've done now, I have removed my waist dart. There's no more waist dart on this pattern. The bit of the dart that I did put into my shoulder, and that was purely to spread the volume, that is gone. So there's no more dart there. This will be sewn, or this will be cut out on my pattern and sewn as is. And the rest I've moved into the bottom section, which have given me that little bit of a curve. Now knits is very forgiving. So even if I do keep this quite straight, on my back I went and angular, on my back I went and I just did a little bit of a shape for myself. But if you keep it angular, because we're working with a stretch fabric, it will stretch and it will sit nicely on your body. I'm just going to cut this away, because there's one last thing now that we're going to do. We're going to start looking at length. Remember, we removed some of the length at the neckline and also at the bottom hip. So that's our next step. We're going to remove that length, and then we've got to make sure that if I put my front and my back on top of each other, my side seams are the same, because those side seams will be sewn in together. If you did leave a little bit at your bust point, mark where you left a little bit of the volume in that not bust point, in the dart, where the dart legs was, and I want you to rather ease that little bit in when you are sewing it onto your back pattern piece. Let's have a look here. We did half a inch, or let's put it this way, sorry, 1.3 centimeters on the high hip area. So I am just going to draw it. You will obviously have made your marks where your high hip area is. If I go to this one as well, just to show you. If I put it there, can you see that? My area from the bottom was over there that I've done and changed it. So I'm going to take a little bit out there. And it was my 1.3. So I just want to make sure I'm taking the right amount off. It was about there. So that was where we reduced length. It was over there. I'm going to cut it out and put it together. This is so important. You can, guys, if you want to, you can leave this in, but know that you are going to get a bit of pooling of the fabric on your waist. That is just the nature of knits. We are going to have to then, just leave it there. We don't want to go and do another sway back adjustment because we've already done all those adjustments on our pattern piece when we perfected our pattern. There we go. And then you can just go and redraw this hemline over there. I know this has been a lot of information that I've given you, but once you've done this, this will become your master pattern for your knits. And in the next one, like I mentioned, I'm going to show you how to size down. If you're working with a knit that's got very little stretch, let's say up to about 10% stretch, then we will leave the pattern as is. But now when I'm going to size down, because I've got a 50% stretch or a 40% stretch, then I do need to go to negative ease. All right, last step before we drew our patterns. Remember, we went down 1.3 because we removed half of it below the waist. The others are being removed over on this area. I'm going to go down there, and this one was, I'm just thinking, did I do it wrong at the back? I'm just realizing now, no, I don't think I did. This was 6. There we go. We don't want to go so much smaller on the armhole, so we've got that section there. Now this little bit that I have gone a little bit small on the armhole, because I'm working with a knit, I can literally just pull my fabric a little bit when I am sewing my sleeve into my bodice. Okay, let's go and look. So I've done that. Again, I just want to double check. You have to double check. Is my shoulders still, I'm a bit short here, so I will have to go put a piece of fabric back and go back to my 11 centimeters. I am a little bit short. So can you see why we need to drew our pattern? So I'll just put a piece of tracing vellum there, add my 0.5 centimeter, and then just reshape that area. For now, all I'm going to do is I'll just redraw my curve. There we go. And I'm just redrawing my neckline, and I'm dropping that. So I have now taken into account that I'm going to have a little bit of pooling on the waist, and I've removed it. We don't want to remove it on the waist. We will remove it at the top section and on the low hip over there. Last step now. We are going to make sure that my side seams are still lining up. So I'm going to put my pattern pieces together and look at that. Okay, I'm slightly out there. Working with a knit, my waist is actually lining up perfectly. It was just when I went and redrew my curve or my hem, maybe when I did my slope, I didn't do it correct there. I am a little bit out there. So I can go and either just add, I'll have to go back to my sloper and see where the mistake came in, because I am working with cookies. I'm not that accurate. So I will then just maybe drop this down a little bit so it is lining up with my front. So I'll just put a piece of fabric in there, or this one. If it's the front that was drawn incorrectly, I will just bring it up a little bit so that I've got my side seams lining up. But it is so important to go and double check that where I've taken my dart out, I am lining up on my waist. And then, as I said, I will go and I will make sure that I'm lining up there. This has now really been a lesson for you on changing your sloper for knits. There's so much we've got to consider sometimes when we are working with knits. Knits can be so forgiving, but we have to get our sizing right. If our sizing isn't right, I'm going to have a pattern or a top that's really going to be very loose on me. I'm going to have a lot of excess fabric. So we have to make sure that you do it correctly. Now the one that I've done now for you, where we've just removed it, this will be your basic knit sloper for up to 10, I want to keep saying centimeters, 10% stretch. Next time in part 2, I'm actually going to show you how I size down for 25% stretch, 50% stretch, 75% stretch. So I'll be talking you through that. But this, as I said, is your basic. And I want you, once you've done that one, please put it on some sort of cardboard for me. You'll see all my slopers are on pattern board, because it is so easy to just go and trace around it. And when we are going to doing a bit of grading, I'm not going back to my master pattern. You can go back. Remember, if you want to do it that way, you can size down 1 or 2 dots. I'm wanting to work up with very stretchy fabrics as well, so I need to really size down quite a bit. And with mine, I've already done certain alterations, so it's going to be easier for me to just grade it from this pattern that I have. So please put this pattern pieces we've just done, front and back, onto your pattern board for next week when we do part 2 with you on the grading. And then lastly, what I wanted to mention, as I said, this is recently that I started really lifting up on the neck area as well, to take out some of this excess that's pooling on the waist. But what really happens, and I'm just gonna, this one, usually we'll get a bit of excess fabric here on the waist and at the back as well. And by what we've done now, remember, above the waist, we took half of it out, and automatically when I'm just lifting that now and sewing that together, can you see, let's just go back again, can you see the bit of pooling there? I'm going to do that. Can you see that pooling? All right, so what I'm doing in effect, because we took out at the neckline and at the shoulder, I'm going to just pull it up a little bit, and can you see how it smooths all of that for us? And that is purely because with knits we do have a little bit of a give on the vertical, even if it's only a stretch. That's really my maximum stretch is horizontal. So go do this section now, or this pattern work now. I will, in the file area, I will draw a little diagram for you of all the lines that you need, so that you can go print it and put it in your reference file. And then it's easier for you, if you've printed it, to go and just make little notes on there for yourself, so that you know exactly all the lines that I've drawn and what I've done on that section, and even where I've removed a little bit of the length. So look below in the comments, in that little box, we are going to put the file for you so that you can download it and go and print it. But next week we will then carry on, and we are going to grade our pattern now for all the different knits.